Welcome back to Luke's Properties YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about why landlords say yes to rent. I'm going to give you a real life case study from one of my rent-to-rent landlords, and I'm going to explain in detail why landlords agree to rent in the first place. Because I get this question all the time. Why would landlords let someone rent their property and then rent it out for more than they're paying them? Why would a landlord do that? So let's get into it. So first, let me talk to you about the landlord of this rent-to-rent. His name's Chris. He's a portfolio landlord. He's got some HMOs. He's got some single lets. He lives on a nice piece of land with his family. They have an Airbnb on their land too. And he self-manages most of his properties other than the one that he rents to me. The ones that he self-manages are in better areas than the one that he rents to me. They're right opposite one of the bigger hospitals in the area, so he normally attracts nurses, doctors, people like that. They can literally walk over the road from the hospital and they're at his houses. So he's got a good portfolio, and we manage one of his 10-bedroom HMOs in a less desirable area than the others, shall we say. So now let's talk about the property itself. It's a 10-bedroom HMO. As I said, it was his worst performing unit in his portfolio. When we took it on, it was full of DSS tenants. I say full, but I think there was only 4 out of 10 rooms that were actually tenanted, with DSS tenants paying really low rents. They were also causing a lot of antisocial behaviour in the area, a lot of problems, a lot of crime. And when we first started speaking to Chris, he had become quite frustrated with this HMO in particular, and he didn't enjoy managing it. It didn't match the rest of his portfolio. It didn't give a good impression to the public. It wasn't a property that Chris was proud of. The tenants had started to take over. The property was underperforming. And to be honest, I think it had all become a bit too much for Chris. So that's the situation that Chris was in, and that's the type of property that it was. Now let's look at what Chris wanted. When we first started to speak to Chris, these were his goals. He wanted passive income and no more hassle. As I said, the tenants were antisocial. Some of them weren't paying rent on time. Most of them were in arrears, and they were making Chris's life as a landlord quite difficult. So his goals were passive income, no more hassle. He wanted guaranteed rent even when the property was empty. When we were speaking to Chris, he had 6 out of 10 rooms that were empty, so his property was underperforming. He wanted a guaranteed fixed rent so that he knew no matter what, he was getting a fixed amount of passive income every single month without dealing with any hassle or any headache from the tenants. He wanted peace of mind. No more calls about issues, antisocial behaviour, tenant disputes, tenant arrears. He had had enough. He wanted a long-term solution, not a short-term fix. He wanted the property to be managed to a high standard without needing his time. Chris thinks like a wealthy person. He values his time more than money. He's at a fortunate stage in his life where he has a property portfolio that he's owned for 20, 30 years. They've all appreciated in value over the years. I imagine the portfolio is worth somewhere between 1.2 to 1.5 million pounds, maybe more. So wealthy people will pay to get their time back. They're happy to free up some of the income from their assets in exchange for peace of mind and no headache. Time becomes more valuable than money to wealthy people because they've made a lot of money, and their assets will always make them more money over time. They have an abundance of money, but they don't have an abundance of time. If you're in your 50s or 60s, it's quite likely that you're 2/3 of the way through your life and you can't get your time back. So time becomes the most valuable asset in life over money. So those were Chris's goals. When I went and met Chris and we had a coffee, we discussed Chris's problems, and then we discussed our rent-to-rent solution. So Chris's problems were low rent from DSS tenants. Our solution to that was increased income from working professionals. So our plan was to improve the perceived value of the property, give it a cosmetic refurbishment, make it look more appealing, and then rent to a higher quality of tenant. That way there wouldn't be any antisocial behaviour. People would be paying a higher rent. They'd be paying on time and respecting the property more. So that was our solution for the low rent from DSS tenants. The second problem Chris was experiencing was antisocial behaviour. Our rent-to-rent solution was to find peaceful, respectful tenants who didn't cause any antisocial behaviour. Our plan was to find working people who aren't selling drugs out of the rooms or causing problems in the area. Working people tend to go to work, come home, relax, have some dinner, and then go to bed. That's a typical working person's lifestyle. So that was our target tenant type. We actually worked with Chris to serve his DSS tenants notice because a lot of them were in arrears anyway. So we worked with Chris to serve them notice and get them out so we could get professional working people in. This took a few months, but we got there in the end. Another one of Chris's problems was constant maintenance issues because the property was old and it wasn't in the best condition. and it wasn't being treated very well by the tenants. There was always maintenance issues that popped up. So our rent-to-rent solution to Chris was that we would handle all minor maintenance up to a percentage of the rent. So if we agreed to pay Chris around £2,000 a month, then we would put aside 5% of that, which is £100 a month, for minor maintenance. That way, Chris wouldn't have to constantly worry about dipping into his pocket to fix maintenance issues, because we would put aside £100 every month to cover that. So that was our solution for maintenance. Another one of Chris's problems was that he had become emotionally disconnected from his property. He wasn't proud of the property. He was quite embarrassed of the state of the property and the people in it. It didn't match the rest of his portfolio. He has good tenants in all of his other properties. Chris is known in the area as a good man of integrity, and this property had become the one bad egg in his portfolio. Our solution to this was to improve the property, completely turn it around, rent to a higher quality tenant, and once we did this over a 3 to 6 month period, the property became a source of pride again. Chris could drive past the property with a smile, knowing that it was in good hands, that it was being looked after, and he became proud of this property again. We took the property from underperforming to overperforming. Chris's last problem was that managing the property became time consuming. Our rent-to-rent solution to this was we would fully manage the property, which would give Chris his time back. So we would manage the property, manage the tenants, manage the maintenance, collect the rent, do everything that needs to be done to make sure the property is in good working order, to make sure the tenants are respecting the property. By doing this, Chris got all of his time back, and all he had to do was sit back and receive his passive income every month. And an added incentive that we put into the deal is that we would increase the rent each year and keep the property in good condition. So Chris didn't have to worry about having to have that awkward conversation with us every year about increasing the rent, because we made it clear from the start that we were open to increasing the rent every year, as long as we can increase the rent to the tenants. And we can always do that because rents rise all over the UK in the property market. And as long as you keep the property in good condition like we do, as long as you make improvements and you make it a nice place to live for everyone, then good quality tenants will always be happy to pay a little bit more each year. And by collecting more rent every year, we were happy to increase the rent that we pay Chris every year. So it became a win-win scenario for both of us. So let's talk about the transformation now. So before we started speaking to Chris, he was getting low rent, crime and issues, constant stress, and the property was in poor condition. After working with us, the property started to generate higher rent. We found working professionals to tenant the property. Chris had zero landlord stress. He had an upgraded and well-maintained property. And most importantly, he had peace of mind and passive income, which is why landlords buy property in the first place. So going back to the initial point of this video, why do landlords agree to rent? Well, because they want time freedom, a predictable income, a partner who solves problems, the partner being us, and a stress-free landlord experience. If you solve real problems, then landlords will say yes. Not all landlords are like Chris. Some landlords are more scarcity thinkers. They have fixed mindsets. Maybe they only own 1 or 2 properties, and they're trying to scrape every single penny out of the asset. Those landlords don't tend to be the perfect fit for rent-to-rent. But when you do find landlords like Chris, who are abundance thinkers, who have growth mindsets, who are wealthy portfolio landlords, then your rent-to-rent offer can really be the perfect solution for them. So I hope this video has explained to you why landlords agree to rent. I hope I've showed you exactly why. I've given you a real life case study of a landlord that we work with. We make around £2,000 plus profit from this property every month. We have done for the last 5 years. Chris is happy, we're happy, and I think we'll keep going. We've also said to Chris that should he ever want to sell the property, we'd hopefully be the first in line. We'd be happy to buy it because we've managed it for so many years now. We know how it works, and we'd be happy to invest more money into the asset and own it ourselves if he ever wants to sell. If not, then we're happy to keep working together as a team, maximizing the asset, making sure he's getting what he needs, adding value to him, and as a result of that, we get paid well as a business. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you want someone to help you get your first few rent-to-rent properties within the next 180 days, guaranteed, then I'll put a link in the video description below. Click the link. You'll then be able to book a call with myself. On that call, we'll work out if we're a good fit for each other and if I'd be a good mentor for you. If not, then keep watching my YouTube videos, copy what I'm doing, copy what my successful students are doing, and go out there and build your own rent-to-rent businesses. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.